Good morning. Alrighty. Welcome to another episode for the Right Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Boral. And today we have a very interesting topic. Have you ever noticed that every company says how much they value privacy, but then you go into Google or any kind of search or even your social media platforms, and then you start seeing ads for things that you mentioned during a Teams meeting? It's crazy that we live in a world right now where the new currency, I believe, is trust. And that's why we chose today's topic, building trust in this digital era. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me make sure. There you go. Okay, so again, I'm Patricia Boral, CEO of Boral Agency, and today we're going to be diving into building trust in today's digital era. Basically, ethical marketing practices for your marketing right now. And before you assume that I'm going to start talking about GDPR or just another compliance talk, just stay with me. I promise this is not going to be one of those conversations. It's really going to be more about growth and how to grow your company, actually using trust as one of your growth strategies. So let's go ahead, because whether you are a manufacturer, a tech company, a hospital, a logistic companies, building trust, it's something that needs to be ingrained in your marketing strategy. It's part of your success today. Consumers are losing trust more and more as time goes by, and as AI is showing, this deep fake and all of these crazy videos with AI that you can create. So your audience is going to start trusting more your message if you start being more authentic and authoritative and trustworthy. So that's really what we're going to be unpacking in today's session, how ethical marketing can drive loyalty and can help you actually grow your brand. So let's jump right in. First, we are in a trust recession. We need to really understand the impact that data misuse can create with your brand. Every business I talk to, whether it's in the oil and gas field or hospitals or a staffing agency, faces the same challenges. People are very skeptical. Nowadays, sales team, well, let's first start with the fact that people are more and more educated than ever in terms of researching about your brand, researching about products. So they become more and more skeptical. They're even skeptical of any kind of sales claims that, of course, you make, any kind of guarantees, automations, and even chatbots, AI chatbots. Ironic, I know. So what's really key is this statistic that I'm sharing right now. 71% lose trust after a single misuse of data. That's a huge impact on your branding. That's a huge impact on your conversion rates. This staggering number can really erase years of your marketing investments building that credibility with your consumers. And the key here is that when somebody is losing trust, it's not because you had a cyber attack or there was a data breach. It really is what happens next. What happens after the fact? Because nobody is free of getting attacked by hackers, right? It really is how you manage the communication. How quickly you communicate? Are you prepared? Or, for example, how well segmented your list is within your own servers, right? Like, how's your data segmented? How is it stored? Are you sharing that information with your consumers or your customers, right? Really, the credibility here and the way that you are building credibility is on how you are using data and how you're communicating that to your customers. Now, think about this. Imagine sending one email to the wrong type of groups or the wrong type of list. Now, that doesn't seem to be a misuse of data itself, right? It seems more like it was like a careless way of using your data. And I think that's what you need to really look into, because a lot of times when you're using your client's data and you're misusing it, it's just showing that your company is not prepared. And that's why you're losing credibility, right? Or what happens if there's a data breach on your email servers? If you don't communicate that right away to your customers, that is going to impact your credibility, and it's going to also affect your brand loyalty as well. For example, Siemens Energy. They started publishing sustainability and supply chain transparency reports way before they were actually required. Now, that is a proactive way of building credibility, but also using trust as part of your growth strategy. Another example that I can think of is, for example, 3M. 3M is a B2B brand that's been in the market for decades. And the only way they're able to really build that through is through the communication that they have with their customers and the reliability that they have. It's part of their brand, basically, strategy, and you can very easily see it. Now, and this is not just for global brands. A lot of times we have mid-market companies, especially, for example, a manufacturing company, that it's not only about sharing it's not only about sharing what you're doing with the data, but even like transparency in your process, like showing behind the scenes, thought leadership, all of that builds credibility. So this manufacturing company that we helped, we were able to share a little bit more and use this part of their process on how quickly they respond to their customers' inquire, and just literally sharing what's the response process. And that alone was able to 10x their conversion rates. Now, that's the power that transparency can create for your brand, but that's only if you're using it as a growth strategy and not as something that you just have to do. Now, there's 3 key pillars for ethical marketing. Now, before we jump into that, I just want you to really keep in mind that no industry is immune. There's no such thing as this is only for high enterprise companies. This is literally across the board. For example, manufacturing companies can share data securities in supply chain, like what's your process there? Or oil and gas companies, vendor transparency, sustainability. Tech companies show how responsible you are with AI and automation, and also with data protection, like how are you managing people's data. Healthcares can talk about patient data protection, or you can even opt in. You can share or ask patients if they want to opt in or not on research, and what type of research. Like, you can disclose a little bit more of information that allows your consumers and your customers to know what's going to happen with their data. Universities, of course, can share student privacy and inclusion. And here's key though: if you are talking about inclusion and diversity, you need to show that in your marketing as well, right? It's not all just talk. You also have to walk your talk. Now, staffing companies, they can also share candidate consent and transparency. For example, we don't share your resume with companies that are not approved by you or something like that. Trust really impacts every transaction, from hospital rooms to boardrooms to any kind of companies across the board. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your company and your growth strategy around trust. Now, there's 3 pillars for ethical marketing. Number 1 is transparency. Number 2, consent. And number 3, human connection. So let's start with transparency. Now, transparency isn't all about literally like sharing every single detail. And I get it. I can hear you already saying things like, Patricia, like, I don't want to share because I don't want my competitors to know more about my process or things like that. It's not about sharing everything like that, right? It's not about spilling all your secrets. It really is more about clarity, being clear on what's your process, what can they expect, what happens when you make a mistake. And I think that's key. When you're transparent on like, hey, these are the mistakes that we've done and this is what we did to fix them, that creates even a stronger bond with your customers. Like, for example, when a logistic company shares or tells client exactly how their data is going to be tracked, or when the package is going to be like tracked all along the way, that type of information is key. Or like I said, when a hospital explains in plain English, not in those long forms that we sometimes have to fill out and we don't even understand, when they are able to explain how the patient data is going to be stored, that's transparency. For example, I believe Apple, like the private privacy campaign, is like, what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. Like, those are the type of campaigns that you can create with transparency as part of your growth strategy. Now, consent is not about just putting a little checkbox whenever somebody's filling out a form or something like that. Consent is really more about control, giving people control on what happens with their data. People want to be able to feel in charge, and we are bombarded with so much content, emails, like, gosh, how many spam emails we receive. Imagine if you're able to put, the little form, and you say like, hey, we're only going to send you the quarterly report with this type of insights, right? Especially if you're in the oil and gas industry or things like that. If you're telling people exactly what they're going to expect, what's the frequency, how often, what type of content they're going to get, it's easier for them to, number one, give you consent, but also feel that they are in control. Of course, tell them that they can opt out anytime and give them the option to opt out anytime in a very easy way. Not in a reply this email, click here, click there. No, just one click, opt out anytime, no questions asked almost, right? For example, LinkedIn gives users the control over ad preferences and data visibility. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's something. So try to really use all those tools to be able to add consent to increase the credibility with your prospects and your customers as well. Now, for example, when we're talking about human connection, right? Human connection, I feel, is something that it's getting lost more and more nowadays. With AI, everybody's getting so excited automating with AI, and all I hear is like, I need to automate my marketing left and right. How can I create this social strategy where the social content is already produced with AI? All I ask is for you to be very careful on how you're using AI without losing that human connection. For example, people are going to start trusting more and more when they see real humans behind the camera versus an AI bot or a clone, which you see that nowadays. Because remember, you want to, at the end of the day, make a transaction with another human on the other side. For example, Honeywell launched this campaign, Future Shapers campaign, where they were showing basically the behind the scenes, right? The engineers. They didn't focus on showing their machines or anything like that. It was really more about the engineers and highlighting the people behind them. And that's really how you're able to humanize a very highly technical brand, right? So think of ways on how can you add that human factor on your growth strategy to help build trust. And that's your foundation for long-term growth. And that is really what ethical marketing is all about. It's really what showing who you truly are without crossing any lines, without hiding any content, right? Without trying to dismiss people. Oops, let's go forward. Now, there's a very, very fine line in terms of personalization, right? So when we're talking about automation with AI, don't get me wrong, I'm all for it. And I've been talking about it in my previous podcasts and my previous webinars about using AI to automate your marketing. And that's great. But there's a very, very fine line between personalization and, let's face it, creepiness, right? So we need to be able to explore and balance those two, okay? So for example, what most marketers get wrong about personalization is that, for example, let's think about, let's say you Google a piece of equipment on Google, right? And suddenly, like, you Google it once, and then you start getting ads from everywhere, from here, Houston, all the way to companies, I don't know, in Singapore, selling you that piece of equipment, right? That that line of personalization, it's a little bit crossed, right? Because you want to make sure that, number one, you are able to localize your content. So geofencing is important, but also you are focused on the intent, right? So you want to make sure that you're recommending helpful insights or products based on your customer's intention, right? So, for example, let's say you purchase a product, like Amazon sometimes does this very well, right? Let's say you purchase a printer, then they're going to suggest, hey, I saw that you bought this printer, right? These are some products that go along well. Like, you want to buy the paper, you want to buy the ink, or something like that. That is a very good campaign for personalization, because it takes out the creepiness factor, right? Because they know you purchased, you purchased that product, right? It's not excessive data. It's really like, okay, you bought this, you're gonna need this as well. For example, a bad example would be if, let's say, LinkedIn allows you to run campaigns where you even upload lists, right? And you can upload lists where you have the emails of the people that you're trying to target, and you can create a very targeted campaign for a very specific person. Like running a campaign when you're saying, like, hey, Bob, I know you were looking at these products on Google, I'm also selling. Now, that is crossing the line to creepiness. You want people to understand, to feel like you understand them, but not that you are stalking them. That's really the fine line that you want to make sure that you're crossing. So make sure that you're offering helpful insights, that you have that human connection factor while removing the creepiness factor, and that you are able to basically detox data, taking breaks on some of those targeted marketing, digital marketing campaigns, to give people a little bit of a break, but at the same time, you can start creating content in a very organic way. So when you're thinking about retargeting, think about retargeting organically as well, not always running ads, is what that means. All right. And we are covering a lot today. Data protection, it really is, it goes beyond cybersecurity. So you can think about your data or ethical or digital data protection just as an IT problem or as a cybersecurity problem. Right now, this is a problem that is across the board. It needs to be part of your branding strategy. Data protection is just not an IT issue anymore. It's really a brand reputation issue. And as such, you need to have risk mitigation factors. What happens on the events of, having a content communication plan? What happens when there's data breaches? What happens when there's phishing attacks? Now, what can you do, right? What can you do as a marketer person? Because you need to be able to be in touch with your cybersecurity and IT teams. Just so you can get an idea, this is not something that affects only enterprise companies. This is something that affects small and mid-sized companies. In fact, 43% of cyber attacks are towards small companies and mid-market companies. And that's only because they don't take cybersecurity so seriously, because they're thinking, oh, I'm a smaller company, I'm such a niche, nobody cares. It's not the case. You need to take data security and cyber attacks very seriously. Train your team. Make sure you're auditing your tools every quarter. Now, one of the questions that I get is like, why do I need a website maintenance package? Right? Like, I'm not going to be updating my website every single month or adding content. We're such a small firm, or we're a small law firm or dentist or whatever. And it's really not about just adding content. A website is not only about marketing or having a brochure online. Your website, it's a door towards all of your service and your systems and your emails. So by not protecting and doing the proper maintenance on your website, you have a very huge leak on your site and on your system that is not only putting your company like employees at risk, but also your customers, because every email interaction can be leaked through your site. So keep that in mind. Make sure you audit it quarterly. Training your team also every quarter, as you know, as ridiculous as it sounds, you know, and even if it's the same content, just train them. Repetition is key, and communicate openly if there's a data breach. Don't delay. There's a lot of companies that have delayed communication whenever they have a breach, and the reputational damage costs them greatly. So the quicker you communicate, the faster you communicate, the easier it's going to be for your brand, and you can build better brand loyalty as well. And that's all we have. We covered a lot. Make sure that trust, the way you build trust, it's a very, very easy formula. Is transparency, time, and consistency, right? And remember the 3 pillars that we discussed today. It's all about your transparency, consent, and that human connection. Okay, if you are thinking about how can I add trust into my own strategy, just reach out to us. Just visit boralagency.com. We help brands communicate in a very ethical way, but also connect with people, not companies. Even if we're B2B, right? But there's a human on the other side. Alrighty, until next time, make sure that if you like this, share this content with your team. Share it in your social media so more people can find out about this, and more people can also create trust as part of their branding strategy. And until next time, keep making marketing moves that drive ROI and trust.